So I was going to be really lost because JR took my notes. So I'm going to explain in just a minute about what that video was all about, and you will hopefully understand. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Lilly, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the facilities manager here at Mount Hermon. I've been on full-time staff here for about 25 years in different capacities. I met my better half, Mary, here on summer staff, which is a common story around here. So they asked me to come up here and give a presentation about the facilities, and they gave me 15 minutes to do it. But in the 25 years that I've been here, this is the first time I've been here. So I have a lot to say. And so I hope settle in is really what I'm trying to tell you. So first off, let me say that this presentation is all about celebrating accomplishments. Oftentimes in the facilities department, we look at our lists of to-dos, and the list seems to grow much faster than we can check things off. For perspective, however, it's a good idea for everyone once in a while to look back at what we have accomplished and celebrate our progress. I would like to highlight just a few of the more notable projects accomplished in this last year. First, however, I'd like to introduce some of the staff on the facility team. Sean McFeely takes care of the day-to-day operations of the facilities at Ponderosa and Redwood Camp, amongst other things. Dale Pollock is our resident engineer who oversees many of our larger projects, as well as our water system and sewer treatment plant. Steve Cope is our in-house architect. So next is a shot of our maintenance crew, and don't let the box of donuts fool you. These guys are hard-working servants who love what they do and are immensely talented. It would take too much time to introduce all of the facilities team, because if I did that, I would have to introduce every one of you. Every single person in this room is part of the facilities crew. Much of our progress is because of your support, both financially, through prayer, and through our faithful volunteers, and many of the faithful volunteers are here today. Besides our own staff and local contractors we use, we rely heavily on these volunteers. So I consider all of you part of the facilities team. Whether or not you realize it, you're on board with Mount Hermon's facilities team. So let's celebrate what God has allowed us to accomplish. And when I say us, I mean us. So let's start right here in the auditorium. Thanks. Although much of the auditorium upgrades have happened over a year ago, it's still a work in progress. You may have noticed some of these things sort of sag on the sides here, these posts. Well, there was a real bad one over here a while back. In fact, you folks over there might want to ooch you over here a little bit. But not really. We actually fixed that just a few months back. We also repainted the old rugged cross out back a few months back, and a few other things. And so this building is still a work in progress and is going to continue to be. The next set of slides. All right, that's the auditorium. The next set of slides depict a complicated shell game in which we move some facilities around in order to open up space for our new adventure center down at the field house. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go check that out at some point. It is pretty amazing, actually. So step one was to convert the little used space underneath staff dining room over there into our custodial office. And the reason we did that is because step two was to convert the old custodial office into the new fitness room. Now, I'm sure if I was there at 6 a.m., I would have seen all of you there. So step three was to convert the old fitness room into the new adventure center. Most of the woodwork on this new adventure center project was completed by the Rec Adventure staff. They have some excellent woodworkers on staff, so who knew? They did a great job. So slide 10 is going to help tell you a little bit about the path that we were talking about, Dave Talbot's path. This is the construction in progress of the path, and the new pathway, I think you will agree, that the finished product is a much safer place to walk from the parking lot to the APC building. Cool. It's also a much safer place for scooter races, apparently. So a few months back, we put a new covered porch on Founder's Cabin. And we've been doing a lot of work on Lilac. Lilac Cabin was remodeled, and it has a new foundation, new exterior covered porch. There are new floors, new furniture, paint both inside and out, new wainscoting, new windows, new ceilings downstairs, and all new lighting. So it's practically a new place. So Camellia Cabin, there's a before picture of Camellia Cabin. How many of you have stayed in Camellia? Okay, well, hopefully it will be much better for you the next time you stay there. Camellia Cabin also got a new foundation, which is a major undertaking. A completely remodeled and accessible bathroom, bedroom and living space, interior and exterior paint and new floors, and we also added an ADA accessible parking space down there. So in Gwynn Lodge, many of you know we're doing some upgrades in Gwynn Lodge. We've completely remodeled one room to a pretty fancy spot, and we decided that was just maybe a little too much. It cost a lot of money, so we kind of scaled back the next few rooms to new floor coverings, new furniture, and new paint and finishes, and we still have many rooms to go over there. But there are some new ones. If you play your cards right, you may get one. So there's a new shed up at Ponderosa Lodge in the forum, or right outside of the forum, for the chairs for the forum, amongst other things. I'm sure it will turn into somebody's office someday. So we also replaced a World War II era water tank that had holes in it, literally, and I don't think it was from the war, because they sort of popped up more recently than that. And we couldn't even fill that tank all the way up because of the water that would pour out the sides of it. So we now have a new 280,000-gallon water tank. We did a major improvement to an access road in the lower part of Mount Herman. It's an access road that accesses Lilac Lane with Mount Herman Road. And there's a whole story behind that like I said, 15 minutes is not enough time. And on Conference Drive, you may have noticed that Talbot kind of messed it up with his scooter fire. So what we had to do is we had to slurry seal the whole thing. So we did that from the White Bridge all the way to the end. So thanks, Talbot. So between outdoor science students, you heard from Susie earlier, volunteers, which we've had a lot of them up there at Ponderosa, and our own staff, we pulled and hauled away over 130,000 pounds of French broom, which is a major invasive species here at Mount Herman, and we're having a hard time getting rid of it, but we're working on it. So if you see that stuff around, feel free to pull it. At Redwood Camp, we've installed 24 new exterior lights, and it greatly improves the safety down there, and you can see actually where you're walking now, which is pretty cool. Also, a generous donor provided some solar water heating panels, and we installed these behind the Redwood Camp pool, and they pretty much provide all the heat needed for the pool. We don't have to turn the heater on in the summertime, which is great. So you also may have noticed down at the field house, if you've been there, if you haven't, be sure to check it out. There's a new activity and feature that recently popped up. 2 new bocce ball courts that just need a few finishing touches. So how many of you know how to play bocce ball here? All right, because I would like someone to teach me later, because I have no idea. As many of you know, the last 2 winters we've had 3 significant wind and rain storms that were pretty major events. They resulted in some major damage to some of our buildings. The next few projects in my presentation are titled Renovation by Disaster. Although we wouldn't choose to plan our renovations by this method, it has resulted in some significant improvements to the affected buildings. And so sometimes God simply chooses the next renovation for us, which makes my job easier to prioritize. So this is Pine Lodge in February of 2011, when a large grove of redwood trees that were once located behind Pine Lodge relocated themselves down the hill about 100 feet. Unfortunately, they now cover what once was Meditation Chapel. One tree fell backwards into the building and damaged the roof line, and there was significant damage to the foundation. It was undermined quite a bit. The strange thing is those trees are still standing just like they grew 100 feet lower, which is interesting. So what we did to Pine Lodge is we installed a new retaining wall that was built on top of piers that go 30 to 40 feet underground, and added new railings around the back of the building, and this should hopefully keep Pine Lodge at the top of the hill for many years to come. Yeah. So this is what the slide at Pine Lodge did to the Sequoia Trail. It completely closed off the trail. The grove of redwoods is sitting on top of Meditation Chapel, like I said. And someday we may attempt to remove those trees from Meditation Chapel, but that's going to be a huge undertaking that would involve cranes and I'm sure lots of money. So instead, what we've done for the time being is some awesome volunteers have reopened the trail by putting a little stairway up and over the root ball. And that was quite an accomplishment as well. So in November of 2010, Parkway Lodge was hit by a large fir tree as well, and it destroyed about 30% of this triplex unit. We were able to rebuild it fairly quickly just before last summer, and it is now in much better shape than before the tree attacked it. I'm sure you all know that in that same windstorm, a large fir tree fell behind Forest Hall and pretty much destroyed Sequoia Lodge. So earlier, I'm sure you may have heard this story, but for those of you who haven't, that was a Saturday night, and earlier that day, the group checked out. Now, groups hardly ever check out on Saturday. They mostly check out on Sunday. So normally, that place would have been full of people. And when that tree fell late at night, no one was in there, and that was certainly God's grace. So Sequoia Lodge now has been fully restored and upgraded to an almost no building. And now Manzanita is not looking quite as good as it used to. But maybe we'll get to that. We won't wish for a tree, no. So we also have many future projects in the works, but pretty limited on time, so I'm just going to highlight a few during this presentation. So last December, we also had a large fir tree fall on Mulberry Cabin, which is a staff house. It's a duplex, and God was protecting the staff who lived there as well. What happened there is this tree right next to the building started making some popping noises during a windstorm. Pretty scary for the folks that lived inside, and what should we do? What should we do? Well, I think you should move out. Let's put them somewhere else. So they did, and that an hour later, literally, that tree fell on the house. So it was another God thing, big time. So Mulberry is 75% rebuilt, and will have a new kitchen and bathroom, as well as a new entry porch. It will also get several other upgrades before we move the staff back in. So in that same storm, several trees fell and destroyed a garage at Strawberry Cabin. I know it doesn't look like it, but that was once a two-car garage with the parking deck on it. And we have plans that the county will allow us to build a new parking deck that's covered in that spot, which would be great for parking at Strawberry because right now it's pretty limited. And our next major cabin renovation is being planned for Spruce Cabin. We're still making plans, but this will include a new foundation, as there is no foundation, expansion of the first floor, living space, as well as many other interior and exterior upgrades. That ought to spruce that cabin right up, don't you think? So here's what my vision of Spruce Cabin will look like when it's finished. All right. So thank you for celebrating with me and for being part of the facilities team.